All right, let's get right into it. We're about to explore the insane, high-pressure world of professional trading. But this isn't going to be one of those stories about fancy cars and huge mansions. No. This is a story about what happens when it all goes completely, disastrously wrong and what it takes to climb your way back out of the wreckage. So, I want you to just stare at this number for a second. $1.5 million. Really try to imagine having that. The freedom, the security, all of it. Now imagine losing every single penny. Poof. Gone.
And there it is. The punchline. That whole fortune just evaporated in less time than it takes to heat up your lunch. This is a story about the market's raw power, but more importantly, it's the story of a trader named PAX who had it all, lost it all, and somehow managed to find his way back.
Okay, so a trader's rise and fall. To really get how deep the fall was, you have to understand just how high he climbed. So let's rewind the clock to the crazy dot-com bubble of the late 90s.
PAX wasn't just some guy trading stocks. He was a force of nature. He basically lived in the NASDAQ 100 futures pit. He knew it so well, he became one of its biggest traders. We're talking about a guy who, by his own account, could literally move the entire market by himself, making and losing fortunes in a single day.
But even at the absolute peak of his success, PAX knew how dangerous the game was. He said this himself, it's almost like he was foreshadowing his own story. He saw these titans of trading, guys worth $50 million, get wiped out by one bad call, and, well, that's a lesson he was about to learn the hard way.
And here it is, from riches to rock bottom. This is where the story turns. That one catastrophic trade, it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a years-long spiral that would take everything.
So what happened? The Fed. They announced a surprise interest rate cut, a 0.5% cut, and the market just went ballistic. PAX was on the complete wrong side of that move, and in the chaos, his $1.5 million just vanished. It burned a lesson into his soul. When you are wrong, you get out. The price doesn't matter. Just get out.
But that massive loss, that was just the first domino. The years that followed were just brutal. First, a nasty divorce in 2003 that messed with his head and his trading. Then, by 2008, his own trading firm goes under. And then 2009, his world just fell apart. He lost his mother, his sister, and his mother-in-law all in a short period. The final nail in the coffin was 2011, when the whole MF Global fiasco wiped out the last bit of money he had. It was a total, complete devastation.
I mean, listen to this. This quote just hits you right in the gut. It shows you that even when he was making money, he was terrified of going back to his old life, driving the truck for his uncle. That fear was always there, right under the surface. And eventually, it became his reality. And this is rock bottom. The guy who could move markets with a single order is now driving for Uber. He's literally digging through the seats of his car looking for spare change just so he could buy milk for his kids. Think about that. From millions to digging for dimes. It doesn't get much lower than that. But this is not where the story ends. This is where it gets good. This is the rebirth. Because when you have absolutely nothing left to lose, you've got everything to gain, right? So how in the world did he do it? How do you rebuild from that? All his money was gone. The only thing he had left, the only capital he had, was his wife's trust in him. She believed in the man she married, so he started over. Not as a market king, but as a humble beginner, trading the smallest size possible. A one-lot, two-lot trader. He was basically learning how to walk again.
And while he was rebuilding, he did something crucial. He went back and looked at his own data. And he found this incredibly simple, powerful pattern. On any single day where he made more than 5 trades, he lost money every single time. And that one little discovery, well, it changed everything.
That discovery was the key. He realized that winning wasn't about being a gunslinger. It was about having a process, something mechanical, something repeatable, something that took his emotions out of the equation. So let's break down these pillars he built.
All right, first up, his actual strategy. It's so simple, it's brilliant. He looks at the first 30 seconds of trading and uses the high and low of that period to define his room for the day.
If the price breaks above the ceiling of that room, he's a buyer. If it breaks below the floor, he's a seller. And if it's stuck inside the room, he does absolutely nothing. That's it. Simple, right?
Next, how he managed his money. And this is all about playing defense. Step 1. Minimize risk. He uses a super tight stop to protect himself. Step 2. Remove risk. He tries to hit a tiny profit target. He calls it his pay line. And as soon as he does, he moves his stop to break even so he can't lose money. Only then, once the risk is off the table, does he even think about making real profit. He lets the winners run and sometimes uses the house's money to add to his position.
This all led to this huge mindset shift. He completely redefined what a loss was. You see, for him, getting stopped out for a small, controlled amount isn't a loss. It's just a business expense. It's the cost of doing business to find a real move. A real loss, that's an emotional, uncontrolled disaster that happens when you break your rules and let a trade get away from you.
Which brings us right back to the #1 rule, the one he learned from that $1.5 million mistake. This is it. It's not complicated. When you are wrong, you get out. You don't hope, you don't think about it, you don't add to your loser, you just get out. Period.
And all of this, the strategy, the risk management, it all builds up to the final and honestly the most important lesson of all. Your mindset is your edge. The ultimate secret weapon in trading isn't on a chart. It's in your head.
And building this edge, it didn't come from some complex psychoanalysis. It came from simple, boring, daily discipline. Waking up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, making his bed every single morning. He found that when he brought structure to his life, structure followed in his trading. Those little habits built the self-trust he needed to actually follow his own rules.
And this is the revelation that ties it all together. He realized he wasn't afraid of the market. How could he be? The market is just data. He was afraid of what he might do to himself in the market. He realized the markets can't actually hurt him. Only he can hurt himself. And that realization put all the power, all the control, right back in his hand.
And that's really the heart of this whole story. You are your edge. It's not about finding some magical indicator. It's about your discipline, your process, your mindset, your ability to control your own worst impulses. That is the only real sustainable edge you will ever find in trading and probably in life too. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. PAX's journey shows us that tiny, disciplined habits can literally be the difference between complete ruin and an incredible comeback. So what's the one habit in your life right now that's defining your success? Or maybe your failure?